All right, gobble, gobble. Hope you guys had a very happy and profitable Thanksgiving, especially when it came to college basketball. And if you didn't, don't worry. Plenty of games here today on this Black Friday to get you caught back up. And, well, let's face it, make it a very profitable end to the month of November. We got a couple games we're going to go over for those of you joining us live here today. If you have any games that you'd like to hear about or for us to break down, drop them in the chat room as we welcome into the best in college basketball here at WagerTalk as Brian Leonard ready to roll today here on this November 29th. And, of course, Adam Trigger with his finger on the pulse of what is going on around the horn here in college basketball. And, gents, we got some interesting tournaments that are going on right now. And, of course, that means we've also got some interesting games that we're going to want to break down, especially in some of these tournaments out west. We've got all sorts of opportunities for you guys to be able to partner here with both Brian and Adam. We'll get to that in a minute. But let us start here, Bri, with Ole Miss and Purdue. Now, Ole Miss, interesting enough, and call me crazy, I really did think Ole Miss was going to lose to BYU yesterday. They ended up going to overtime and then absolutely crushed them. But Purdue handled North Carolina State pretty easily in what was a lower scoring game than I thought was going to be here, Bryce. So now these two getting ready to go at it here tonight. What do you think of Ole Miss here and Chris Beard dicking on Purdue tonight?
Good coach. They were opened up as a 4-point underdog. We're now seeing 2.5s, maybe 3s here. I liked Ole Miss slightly at the 4-point number. It's no longer there. Dre Davis is listed as questionable for this game here. He's one of the better players for this team. So we got to make sure he's playing. If he's playing, I'm leaning that direction. My number is roughly 2.5 here. It's not much either way from a point spread standpoint, but two very good teams. Purdue, a different looking team than what they had last year. Braden Smith, great playmaker for this team. He's done very well. And both teams are pretty deep in that regard. They'll both go about 6 or 7 deep. But if Dre Davis can play, I think there's a slight edge here for Ole Miss, but I would have rather had that 4 that was out there earlier as opposed to what it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, the game's in San Diego there, Trig. It is the title game of this Children's Classic out there. And listen, I thought it would be a higher scoring game yesterday with Purdue and North Carolina State. Neither team necessarily great defensively, but certainly have the offense to be able to get it going. Listen, Chris Beard in his day, it was all about defense. He's got a pretty decent team here in Ole Miss, but boy, oh boy, they staved off BYU and just blew them out in overtime. So what do we get for the title game here? Besides a mute, I think besides us having to read your lips.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Great. Okay, good.
There we go.
Yep.
I was gonna say it's gonna take me a long time for me to forgive myself for not playing Purdue yesterday. I've been trying to find a good spot to play against NC State. Got put off a little bit by like the early line move up to like 7.5 back to 7, but that was a no-brainer and an easy cover for Purdue. So really kicking myself there. Do I want to come now back and play Purdue today? Not really. I'm with Brian. I kind of make the number right where it is at 3. But I do think that this game plays under. So I'm not. Cool. I've never really loved handicapping totals. I don't trust my handicap on totals as much. But a couple things I found in this game in particular that lean me toward the under. Evan Maya has Purdue true tempo rank outside the top 300. So 307th. I do think that they're likely to control the tempo in this game. Second thing, Ole Miss comes off a crazy overtime game. Final score in that one was 96-85. So that can only serve to pump up this total a little bit. Both teams having to play, the second day of a back-to-back, which is, Joe, a big reason I try to not get involved with these MTE type tournaments, especially when they're on a back-to-back. Very difficult to handicap tired legs, the quick turnaround. It's not the only time we see a back-to-back really in college basketball is conference tournaments and these early season tournaments. You don't see teams really ever play back-to-backs the rest of the year. So in my opinion, that's always a challenge. But I guess the way I see this playing out is Purdue kind of controlling that tempo. If they want to play slower, I think this one is going to play slower. Purdue is still a team that they still can hit the three. I don't think, yesterday's game, just 5 for 16 from three, only attempted 16 threes against NC State. I do think they need to hit more of those to win this game. But at the same time, I just think they'd probably dictate this tempo. And unless they're just absolutely lights out and just shooting it, at a much higher clip than they did yesterday, Joe, I would be surprised if this one gets over the total. So that number being in the mid 140s, I think at 145 caught my eye as being a little bit high. I'll say this one goes under.
Yeah, you know what, Drake? I don't hate that look at all, given the overtime nature. And Ole Miss basically had to battle back from a deficit early in that game. They were still trailing in the second half, so they were fortunate to get it to overtime and then basically blew the doors off of BYU there. So, yeah, man, even look at the first half under in this one, given the fact that you mentioned Purdue not in a rush to go anywhere. Also, another team never in a rush to go anywhere. How about St. Mary's here, Bri, getting ready to take on Arizona State. Arizona State, interesting, very chameleon-like. Takes a ton of threes. That shouldn't come as a surprise here, but they don't mind playing a half-court game. They've shown they can go up-tempo here, so a battle of wits here with these two teams. Who do you think is the better team, and who's going to win?
Well, I always like the team who could play either style and have success doing it. And Arizona State's tempo on the season is 104. St. Mary's 327. As you mentioned, St. Mary's is very much like Purdue. They're a team that would prefer to play in the half court settlement, and they do have in my opinion, the two better players in this game, which is Mitchell Saxon and Augustus Marciulionis. I think those are the two best players in the game. That said, this is a pretty good Arizona State team. And, St. Mary's, take a look at back-to-back games here. Obviously, they played USC last night, crushed them 71-36. Usually when you find something like that, at least in my mind, I find that team a little bit overrated. I think the line is favored in their area because of that. They come into the game undefeated on the season. Arizona State has only lost once all year, and that was at Gonzaga by 8. Nothing to be ashamed about there. And they struggled a little bit. They beat New Mexico yesterday, 85-82. So I usually prefer to play a team that would play a tighter game the day before, as opposed to a team like St. Mary's that had an easy game. The line helps you out a little bit in that regard. I only made this game 4, which puts me on the underdog side here. And, despite the other team, I think, having the two best players, as a whole, I think this is a pretty good spot here for Arizona State.
Looking for Arizona State to get it done here tonight. They've certainly shown, Trig, an ability to be able to win any kind of game that you want to throw at them. Are they too reliant on the three? And isn't this the kind of game St. Mary's always dictates their pace and bullies people around anyway?
Well, you bring up St. Mary's dictating the pace. It's almost guaranteed they're going to have one or two games every year where they beat a team like that. Like it's if you go back to previous years, I think last year they held Middle Tennessee to like 34 points in one game. I was trying to figure out who it was. A couple of years ago, they did it to a notable opponent, and I don't have it in front of me. But where they're gonna lull you to sleep. So we talked about true tempo rank with Purdue. They're 327. So St. Mary's is always going to be at the bottom of the tempo, and there's always someone that can't play against that. on a given night, it's really going to mess with a team, and that's what we saw last night. So I'm with Brian. I think coming off of that, you're probably catching like 2 extra points with Arizona State than you should be or you would have had last night not happen. So this was probably the least opinion of any of the 3 main games we're going to talk about today for me. But I have to lean toward the points because of that result. Because and I'll expound upon that. That result has happened at least once a season for St. Mary's, as long as Randy Bennett has been there. There's always one. They always have that game. I think it was Colorado State a couple years ago that came in flying high, and St. Mary's held them to like 40 points. Like, it's just something obnoxious like that. It doesn't mean they do that every game. You can go look at any St. Mary's season. Like, they're always pretty good, but that's usually an outlier, like one of those types of performances. I am not as high on Arizona State as some others, which is why I'm not going to have a play here. But the points at 6 or whatever this one is right now, it definitely makes sense. So lean toward the Sun Devils for me here.
Makes sense for you in that spot here. And again, that game coming up a little bit later here tonight, 9:30 Eastern time, I believe, is when that game is set to tip. It is 5.5. The total has been crashing. 143. We're down to 140. That should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody involving a St. Mary's team here. All right, we got one other main game we're going to break down in Brian's neck of the woods involving Northwestern and the Running Rebels, UNLV. Interestingly enough, Brian, not a lot of movement in this game at all, in fact, here. Still seeing 5s, or 4s, rather. Still seeing 4s in the marketplace. Total hasn't moved, although it does appear that it is heading south and down for an under at 137. What do you think of this Running Rebels team this year? What are you hearing? Anything crazy with them?
Not much. It's they don't look to be very deep. And Jeremiah Cherry, 6'11" center, last night was hurt. He won't be playing tonight. Doesn't have tremendous stats, but he plays 23 minutes a game. So you're playing the back-to-back. I mean, I know these are college kids, but you're playing in a back-to-back situation without a 6'11" guy, which really hurts when you're playing a physical team like Northwestern. The entire Big Ten is a pretty physical team. From a defensive standpoint, Northwestern's 48th, and UNLV 126. And UNLV, when they play at home, can get behind the crowd a little bit defensively. But over the years, they've been a team that hasn't been that impressive defensively. Northwestern, I talked about playing teams that you were in a tight game the day before. They lost a close game to Butler, I believe, and then UNLV was blown out to Mississippi State. So I made this line 6. I like the Northwestern side better, and I'm surprised the line hasn't gone up. Not, like I said, not that Cherry is a great player, but he's somebody who's going to help you defensively on what is not a very good defensive team overall in UNLV. So without him in there, they've got to play some of their other guys. And if you take a look at the Bayesian power ratings for each of the players, Vegas is playing guys getting decent minutes that are really less than bench players. So they're not deep at all. They've got like 3 or 4 guys that are pretty good ball players, but they're not deep at all. And playing the second of a back-to-back, I only have to lay 4 with Northwestern. Yeah, you can put me on that. I'll take that.
You do like the Northwestern side here. It's interesting, Trig. I mean, they barely lost to Butler yesterday, but they were a favorite in that game, if I'm not mistaken. They were at least a 2.5 point favorite in that one. The total went flying over, and now they're taking on a UNLV team. And listen, I don't know. Is there any shame in losing that game that they just lost? I don't think so. But to Brian's point, there are levels to this. I mean, getting smoked by Mississippi State and Buzz Williams, or Mississippi State 80-58 is not great. But they were also nearly a double-digit dog in that game. So what do we do here in this one?
Yeah, as you saw, I was just fidgeting with my phone. I was punching this in for clients. I'm going to lay the 4 with Northwestern and unfortunately have to endure backing Northwestern at least one more time this year. I was on Northwestern yesterday. That was an excruciating result. They missed probably 8 to 10 shots from close range, and then they missed the game tying layup twice. The layup and then the putback to lose by 2. Of course, the other time I was on Northwestern this year was their other loss to Dayton. Had them plus 4.5, and they missed a 3 to backdoor at the buzzer. Point is, though, like yesterday's game, they pretty much got exactly what they wanted against Butler. They got the ball into the paint. In the second half, they got the ball inside on the guy that was in Brooks or whoever was in foul trouble. They kept trying to go at him. They got to the rim, and we just got to give Nick Martinelli a pass here. He had one of the worst games of his career. He had a horrible game. He went 3 for 15 from the field, scored 7 points. This is a guy this year that scored 26, 32, 27, 16, 22, and 20. He's the best player on this Northwestern team, and he just had a really bad game. One of those nights where, he couldn't finish through contact. I mean, probably 2 or 3 and 1 opportunities that rolled off the rim. He just couldn't buy one. And even with all that being said, Northwestern still gets right there, 2 cracks at tying the game with a layup, and it just rolls off the rim. Just not their night. Brooks Barnheiser came back a couple games ago. Last night, leading scorer for Northwestern with 24 points. He now has 20, 13, and 24 since returning. That's huge for Northwestern. The other reason, and the reason I just punched this in as Brian was talking, is Cherry being out is an absolutely huge deal, in my opinion, for UNLV, because this is a team that lost most of their good defenders from last year. So remember, last year, UNLV, Keelan Boone, Caleb Boone, Luis Rodriguez, maybe the 3 best defenders on that team. None of them are on the team anymore. So now you take Cherry, the 6'11" big, out of the mix, and a lot of those close range opportunities that Northwestern just could not get to go in last night either are probably going in, or maybe there's a rebound. Northwestern only turned the ball over 4 times yesterday against Butler. So you know what? Give Butler credit. Like they did enough to win that game, even with Northwestern not playing their best game. Butler made plays when they needed it. A couple huge threes down the stretch for them, got to the line and just did enough to win that game. But make no mistake about it, Northwestern did not play even close to their potential last night. And you can just look at Martinelli's numbers to see that's absolutely true. I think UNLV is very average this year. You basically have Dedan Thomas as a superstar. He's an absolute superstar, one of the best players in the Mountain West Conference. The problem is he's surrounded by a lot of mediocrity. And I think it's going to make UNLV a pretty good play against. Here you take Cherry out. That's a big deal. I was a little weary of laying 4 with Northwestern. Knowing Cherry's going to be out makes me have no problem with it. So, Northwestern -4. I just added it. Will be a 4% play for me.
Oh, all right. Love it. Listen, hey, Brooke, we'll fix it this time here because they're going to win this one. I saw the final 2 minutes of that game, Trig, against Butler, and it was... Wow.
Almost threw my Thanksgiving dinner up, Joe. Thankfully, I had the Packers going right at the same time.
Woo, that was absolutely rough to watch here. But the good news is we've got all sorts of new things here to be excited about, new games coming up. In fact, we got a couple of best bets from the guys we're going to get to. If you are joining us here today on this Friday after Thanksgiving, plenty of great college basketball games. If you got a game you're interested in, drop it in the chat room. We'll get to a few of those. Not to mention, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, become part of the WagerTalk TV family. As Brian Leonard locked loaded here, we got an NFL game still today, Brian. We got 97 NHL games because they can't figure out the schedule. So what are you, what's locked and loaded, and what is your best bet here tonight?
Well, we talked about the Northwestern game. That is one of my 2 college basketball plays today. I also have 3 plays in the NHL. I did not like the college football card today, but I do have a 5% in college football going tomorrow. I'm going to stick for my best bet on the show. I'm going to stick to the same tournament out here. New Mexico is playing USC. New Mexico leads the country in true tempo rank. This is a team that wants to get out and run. They've scored, I think, 71 points or more against every opponent they've played. It's a team that, if you take a look at the consistency rank, they're pretty good. You know what you're going to get out of them, and you get a pretty good outing every time they play. Far better defensive team. I've got them 41st in defense as opposed to USC's 134. USC's also a team that slows it down a little bit. Their tempo is 193. I don't think they have the talent to run with the New Mexico team here. New Mexico, as we'd pointed out, that this is a team that is a quality team, and they, as opposed to USC, no, they lost yesterday to this Arizona State team we just spoke about, but they only lost by 3. And Arizona State, I happen to think, is a pretty good team. USC on the season, they only have 2 losses. California 71-66 at home, and St. Mary's last night, they get crushed 71-36. I just don't like this USC team. Their probably best team that they have beaten maybe is San Jose State. They haven't beaten anybody. They played a very easy schedule thus far. Normally, I don't like to go against a team that has just been blown out, but I think we're going to see a lot of games where USC just does not live up to expectations. And, you know, there's not going to be a look ahead or anything, but they do play Oregon up next. And you just talked about before we even got on air about Oregon's team that you liked them so well. It's going to be a tough situation here for USC. I'll lay the 6 points here with New Mexico.
All right, going to lay it there with New Mexico taking on USC. Boy, that was just embarrassing, USC yesterday, too. My goodness. All right, Trig, talk to us here. What is it we are looking at for a best bet, and what is already locked, loaded, ready to roll as we head into the first week of December? Kind of crazy.
Yeah, so what I have up on my page right now, Packers ended up getting it done last night, another 5% winner for me. So I'm now 5-0 on 5% plays in November. And my final one will go on Saturday in college football. So you can get that on my page. I definitely suggest just using that 7-day special that we have going this week. It's only $69 for 7 days to get everything, as opposed to just paying for, 5% play. College basketball, already a winner for me today with Appalachian State. They'll come for you, Joe. The Appalachian State, if you don't say that correctly, Appalachian State Twitter will let you know. But I got them this earlier today with a win. I have 3 plays still to go today for college basketball. I've packaged 2 of them together, and I just added what will be my best bet for the show. That's Northwestern -4. But I already broke down Northwestern -4, so go back and check out our breakdown of that. I'll talk about, just to get another game in the mix, I'll discuss another game. It's another MTE type game. St. Bonaventure playing Northern Iowa. I was at Thanksgiving dinner last night, Joe. My fiance's cousin plays hockey for St. Bonaventure and says he sees Woj on campus every single day, and that like he's means business. Like when that hire for them, he retires from ESPN, he takes the job at St. Bonaventure. I think a lot of people just were like, oh, okay, that's nice, like whatever, have fun in retirement. Everything I hear is that they are going like so hard to what's the word, like just like raise the profile of the program, and that type of stuff matters now maybe more than ever in college athletics. So that team, I wasn't fully sold on their roster this year, but I will say this, like Mark Schmidt is as good of a coach as you're going to find in the Atlantic 10. And I that's the type of stuff that you like to hear. They, in my opinion, they're a team that I'm going to bump up in my rankings. So I wish I got to the window with them yesterday. I feel like I maybe missed my chance. They were a 6.5 point dog in that game yesterday with Utah State, and they ended up covering. Had Northern Iowa not been totally embarrassed yesterday, I'd probably play St. Bonaventure at like -1 or -1.5 here. It's moved a little bit, so I still lean their way. Kind of think that they're just a better team than Northern Iowa at this point, and I just like where the program is going. So no play for me. I lean Bonnie's in this one. My best bet for the show is Northwestern -4, which is now a client play. But I'm going to be looking at St. Bonaventure. The way the A10 is starting to shape up, there needs to be another team like in the mix. I know Dayton just had a really good run in Maui, not fully sold on them. VCU is the team I really liked in the A10, but I saw some things last week that make me think they're not just going to run away with the league. I'm not sold on Rhode Island, who I don't think is lost yet. There needs to be another team in the mix in the A10. Maybe it's the Bonnies this year, who were a little bit down last year. So best bet Northwestern -4, slight lean Bonnies in this one, but I will find a spot to play St. Bonaventure in the coming weeks.
All right, definitely looking for a spot to play the Bonnies coming up. All right, I got a game too, and I do not understand the line. And really, Trig, I was going to do the Holy Cross Virginia game, but I would have sworn you were all over that game. But since you're not, I'll leave that alone, even though I'm playing the under in that game. Can somebody tell me why Porter Moser and Oklahoma are getting points against the Louisville team that lacks depth, coming off an overtime game? And this is what, now their third game in a row in 3 days, I think, taking on a team that does not shoot themselves in the foot. If it's one thing we know about Porter Moser and OU, is that this team will not foul you. This team will not send you and give you free points, and they won't turn the damn ball over. Listen, it took everything they had, Louisville, in order to be able to get that game against West Virginia yesterday. And again, that's your third game in a row. Now they're going to play in this spot against a very well-disciplined Oklahoma team that is going to give me points. I will take the points with Oklahoma. They dispatched of Arizona, I thought, rather easily in that game there. The Cardinals like to run. Well, you know, that's 4 games in a row now. Don't think so. I think OU handles business, wins this game. So not only would I take the 3.5, damn right I'm taking them on the money line as well. Give me OU over Louisville, who I'm still trying to figure out how the hell Indiana lost by 900 points to the other day. Also, guys, couple of questions here real quick. I'll ask you guys about this game coming up because I saw it in the chat room. Wichita State taking on Florida. Now, Florida's a real team here, even though the coach has got all sorts of issues there in Golden outside of basketball. But Wichita State, I correct me if I'm wrong here, Trig. The best game Wichita State has seen, or the best offense, looks to me to be the Billikens. But I don't know that Avia was playing when they played them. It feels like this is a ridiculous step up in class. I'm shocked it's not double. It may be double digits now. It was 9.5 earlier today, but boy, Florida dispatched the Forbes and Wake Forest rather easily, didn't they? They didn't even shoot well, Trig.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Like, if you watch Wichita, Minnesota was a heck of a game yesterday. Goes into overtime. 3-point shot hits like every part of the rim and somehow doesn't fall. So Wichita survives. What do you see the number at, Joe, right now? Is it up to 10?
9.5? Yeah, 9.5, 10. You saying 10? Yeah.
I'm not high enough on Florida to come out and lay 10 with them in this spot. But at the same time, like, you're right. Like, Wichita probably has a loss coming to them. So obviously it could very well be here as a 10-point underdog. That being said, like, Wake Forest, you look at Florida so far this year. They crushed Florida State, who I think could be a bottom 3 or 4 team in the ACC. Yesterday, they crushed Wake Forest, who I think is probably the most fraud of the quote-unquote contenders in the ACC. And we would need to do a whole nother show for me to talk about like what I think of the ACC conference in all across athletics right now, which is just fraud teams everywhere. So, you know, those are the 2 biggest results for Florida at this point. I kind of want to sell them too a little bit. So in this game, like, I feel like 10 is inflated, but I'm not overly confident in Wichita State either. So my number says Wichita State, but no involvement for me here.
Brian, let me ask you, because that West Virginia team getting ready to take on Arizona, who has now lost 3 of 4. Not great, Arizona. Taking on West Virginia here, they seem to put it together. Former Drake coach there. I think he brought his son with him there. A couple of players from that program. And it looks like, West Virginia getting better, but I don't know what to make of this Arizona team. This is not the Arizona of years past, apparently, here. What do you make of this game coming up top of the hour?
Yeah, I'm really surprised by West Virginia. The upset the other day really was a shocker to me. Maybe they're better than what we think they are. I don't know. Arizona's been, as you mentioned, they haven't been well. They're coming in 3-3 on the season. Losses to Wisconsin by 15, Duke by 14, Oklahoma by 5. Pretty good teams. I mean, they have not surprised you to lose some of those games against these teams. But West Virginia is a team that right now, their losses, Pittsburgh and Louisville, but they beat Gonzaga. I mean,
yeah,
not too many people are going to have a win over Gonzaga on their resume, especially a game that's not at home, wasn't at home, as a neutral site game. I prefer the West Virginia side here slightly, but not enough to get involved with it.
It's a lot of points, Trig, isn't it, though,
Yeah.
for Arizona here? Do you think they're going to run up and down? Are they going to wear them down? I don't know what to make of this line with this team.
Yeah, listen, West Virginia is, I think we did a preview on this one, Joe. This was one of the like 20 or 25 previews that we did. And I thought there would be some intriguing, spots to play on them. I like DeVries at Drake. And
yep,
I guess the cat's a little bit out of the bag at this point. I didn't expect them to have success in the form of beating Gonzaga this early in the season. I go back to the Pitt game they played. That was kind of the one I didn't I'm pretty high on Pitt as well. So no action there for me, but they were a 7.5-point underdog in that game and got completely destroyed. And I, kind of said, all right, maybe we need to pump the brakes on like a quick resurgence at West Virginia. But since they've been awesome. I mean, they destroyed Iona. That's not saying much, but that's still arguably the best team in the MAC this year, at least the most talented. Obviously a win over Gonzaga and they really could have won Louisville yesterday. I mean, had every opportunity to win that game and then lose it in overtime. Arizona's not, they're a team that I'm nowhere near what the market was on them a couple weeks ago. Now they've taken a step back. Obviously 3 of their last 4 are losses, blown out by Wisconsin, handled by Duke, and then the lose to Oklahoma yesterday. So I lean toward the points, but I feel like you're taking such a discount now. Like the line is too discounted based on recency. So I'm going to wait and try to play against Arizona down the road somewhere. But I wouldn't be surprised if West Virginia ends up in this game. They've, the last 2 days, they've been ultra competitive against like or better teams. So why not here? I guess is the way I look at that.
Yeah. Why not here is right. It's that game coming up top of the hour, guys, and I'm seeing 6.5 now popping up. And interestingly enough, the total hovering still around 151. If Arizona has its way, there's a good chance that goes up and over the total. But there you got it here, guys. Plenty of these MTEs still going on this weekend. Plenty of opportunities to partner up here with Brian as well as Adam when it comes to not just college basketball, of course. We still got plenty of college football left, the NFL, so much happening, NHL here as well. You can visit Brian and Adam over at WagerTalk.com. Partner up with these guys. Take advantage of it with this Thanksgiving week special that we've got at WagerTalk.com. All right, that'll do it. Once again, don't forget, hit that thumbs up, guys. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so. Make sure you come back and join us tomorrow, a live edition of Last Call, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll get you all caught up in rivalry week 14. Of the college football season. We might talk a little college hoops as well, but great information coming your way. 11 a.m. Eastern time on Saturdays, 12 o'clock noon on Sundays, an hour before the NFL kickoff. Make plans to come back and join us for Last Call. Until then, on behalf of Brian Leonard and Adam Trigger, guys, we appreciate the time. Best of luck with your plays here today. We'll see you again tomorrow here on Wager Talk TV.